Hello, alive kids. I hope you've been enjoying hearing some bedtime stories over the last few weeks. I hope you're sat comfortably. Have you maybe got your pajamas on? Maybe you've got a cuddly toy sat with you as well, ready to listen to this evening's bedtime story. I've got two of my teddies here with me this evening. This one is Scruff Dog and this one is Smusher. And they have both been so excited, haven't you, to be able to tell you a bedtime story and to be able to hear the story this evening. So, the story that I'm going to tell you this evening is about a bad haircut. Have you ever had a bad haircut? I've definitely had a bad haircut, and one of them in particular was my fault. So when I was about 6 or 7, I used to have a fringe like this, and it was getting longer and longer, and it needed a trim. And so my mum said, don't worry, I'll give it a trim and sort it out. But then the phone rang, and when my mum answered the phone, she was on the phone for what felt like ages, and I just couldn't wait any longer. I was sat waiting for what felt like hours and hours, and I decided I was going to cut my fringe myself, and that was a really bad idea. Don't do it. Don't do it. I thought I was cutting really straight across, and I wasn't. It was getting shorter and shorter and shorter as I went across. And when my mum saw it and she knew she had to fix it, there was only one way to fix it. She had to cut it all the way as short as I'd cut it, and it looked very silly. And the worst thing was that I had to have some photographs taken, and they had me in them with a really silly little fringe. So I want to tell you a story this evening about someone in the Bible who had a bad haircut, and the consequences for him were quite a bit worse than having just some silly photographs. You might have heard of someone in the Bible called Samson. Now, before Samson was even born, God spoke to his mum and said, when Samson is grown up, he's going to do some amazing things. He's going to start off a way that means that Israel's enemies are defeated. But in order for him to do that, there were some things that he wasn't allowed to do. And one of those things was to get a haircut. And so as Samson grew bigger and bigger, his hair got longer and longer. But another thing about Samson is that he was the strongest man in the whole world. He was stronger than any man that there'd ever been, and stronger than any man that there's ever been since. He was so strong. And when he got older, when he was grown up, he fell in love with a lady called Delilah. Now, Samson's enemies, the Philistines, had spoken to Delilah, and they said, if you can find out for us the secret of how Samson is so strong, we will give you lots of money. And so Delilah agreed. She said that she would find out for the enemy, for the Philistines, how Samson was so strong. And so she spoke to him and she said, Samson, how is it that you are so strong? What is the secret? And Samson didn't really want to tell Delilah what the secret was, and so he lied to her and he said, if you get some bowstrings that aren't dry yet and tie me up with those, I won't be able to get out. That's the secret. And so what Delilah did was she got some new bowstrings and she tied Samson up with them, and she hid some Philistines in the house. And then she shouted to Samson and she said, quick, quick, there's some Philistines in the house. The enemy is in the house. And Samson broke free of the ties that she'd put round him and went and chased off the Philistines. And Delilah was really sad because she thought that Samson had told her the truth. And so she said to him again, Samson, how is it that you're so strong? What is the secret? And again, Samson didn't want to tell her what the secret was. And so he told her that if she got some new rope, some brand new rope that had never been used, and she tied him up with that, that would be it, that would do it, and he wouldn't be able to break free. And so Delilah did the same thing again. She got Samson and she tied him up with some new rope, and she hid some of the enemy people in the house. And then she shouted to Samson, "Quick, quick, the enemy is in the house." And Samson broke free of the rope that she tied him up with, and he chased away the enemy out of the house. And now Delilah was so sad because she thought that he'd told her the truth. And so she said, "Please, please tell me, Samson, what is the secret?" And so he told her another lie, and he said, "If you get my hair and you weave into it some fabric, that will do it. That will be enough to stop me from being strong." And so when Samson was sleeping, Delilah wove the fabric into Samson's hair, and she hid the enemy in the house again. And she woke Samson up and she said, "Quick, quick, the enemy are in the house." And Samson jumped up, and he was just as strong as he'd ever been because he hadn't told Delilah the truth. And so Delilah was so sad, and she said to Samson, "Please, please, if you love me, please tell me what is the secret to how you are so strong." And so Samson decided that he was going to tell Delilah the truth. And he said to her, "Delilah, I have never had my hair cut. If I have my hair cut, I will lose all of my strength." And Delilah knew that this time he was telling her the truth. And so in the evening, Samson put his head on Delilah's knee, and she was stroking his head until he fell asleep. And then once she was asleep, someone came and cut off all of Samson's hair. And then when the enemy was in the house and she said, "Samson, Samson, the enemy is here," and he jumped up and all of his strength had gone. And he was captured by the enemy, and he was taken and he was put in prison, and he was made to do some really hard work. And so Samson was very sad, and he'd lost all of his strength. But the amazing thing was that his hair started to grow back again. And he prayed to God and he said, "Please, God, remember me. Help me to defeat this enemy. Help me to do the thing that you've promised that I will do." And so as time went on and Samson's hair got longer and longer, and the enemies brought Samson out and they said, "Look at this man. He used to be so strong, and now he's not strong at all." But Samson had prayed to God, and God had returned Samson's strength to him. And Samson was able to pull down a whole building. He was so strong again. And he was able to do what God had promised before he was even born he was going to be able to do. Now, sometimes we make mistakes like Samson. Sometimes we do things that aren't what God would want us to do. But the amazing thing we can learn from Samson's story is that there is always a way that God can make it so that we can do the things that he's asked us to do, even if sometimes we make a silly mistake. I hope you've enjoyed the story this evening, Alive Kids. Have you guys enjoyed it? Yeah, awesome. I hope your teddies have enjoyed it as well. So sleep tight, have safe and sweet dreams, and we'll see you all again very soon. Good night.